Good morning. Good morning from Singapore. I hope everybody's doing well in Hanoi and all around the world. Here in Singapore, we're really excited to speak with you today and be able to have a conversation, even in a virtual format. We've been watching the Indo-Pacific Business Forum these last couple of days and have really enjoyed the presentations and all the different speakers. So we hope that what we have to say in our conversation today will be useful for everyone. Right off the bat, I want to echo the remarks of other speakers in thanking the Vietnamese government for hosting this year's IPBF. Really a tremendous effort and a great success so far. So we want to thank the Vietnamese people. We want to thank all the attendees for IPBF, whether you're in person or signing in from around the world. Your time is valuable, and we appreciate your attention today. I have the great pleasure to be here with a couple of good friends. First, my diplomatic counterpart from the Singaporean Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Chee Chain Koh. Chee Chain, you want to wave to the folks? Okay. And I also have the pleasure of being joined with Dr. Hsien-Hsien Lei, the Chief Executive Officer of the American Chamber of Commerce in Singapore. Hsien, thanks for joining us today. So we want to get started right away with an overview of the American business presence here in Singapore. I think for those of you that know the region, the Indo-Pacific, you know that many of the companies that are here not just for Singapore, but for the broader region, which makes it a unique business environment. So without further ado, I want to turn it over to Hsien to talk a little bit about the American Chamber.
Thank you so much, Chad. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. It's such an honor for me to be here with you today. Some of you may know that I'm actually a scientist by training. I'm an epidemiologist, and I don't think I would have ever imagined that I would be presenting at a global forum such as this one. So it's really incredible for me to be here today. Also, I'd like to mention a little bit about what the Chamber has meant to me personally, and I think this translates very well to how the Chamber has really become a very important influence in the community here in Singapore. So I moved to Singapore 12 years ago. I am Chinese American. And when I arrived here, I had been a scientist, as I mentioned. So I didn't really know very much about corporate life. But I joined an organization that was a member of the American Chamber of Commerce in Singapore. And it was there that I feel that I truly grew up from a business sense, that I understood what it meant to conduct business in Singapore, in the region, as well as globally. So that experience really worked very well for me in terms of my own education, knowledge, and experience, but it also translated to the organizations that I worked for. Prior to joining the American Chamber of Commerce, I was a regional vice president for a medical technology company. And there, the American chambers across the region were also very helpful to the organization in terms of helping us communicate our thought leadership and build our corporate brand. And then finally, in terms of community, the American Chamber has been a place where many of us have made very good friends, very good partners in terms of business, in terms of even on the personal front. I can tell a number of different stories about how people have met their significant others. So you can see that the influence of the American Chamber of Commerce is really quite amazing. And I'm really pleased to be able to tell you a bit more about our operations here in Singapore. So let me go ahead and share the slides that I have prepared for you today. Right, here we go. Okay. So a very brief overview of the American Chamber of Commerce in Singapore, AmCham. We have nearly 600 member companies as part of our membership. About 2/3 of them are multinational companies and about 1/3 are small and medium enterprises. We are an inclusive organization. By that, I mean that we do have American-owned businesses as part of our membership. In fact, the majority of members are American-owned. However, we are also open to companies that are interested in doing business with American companies or interested in expanding their presence in the US market. So these 600 companies are incredibly diverse across 14 different sectors as well as functions. Incredible leaders that are represented, over 5,000 individuals were employees of these companies. And we are one of the largest and most active international business associations in Singapore and Southeast Asia. I am actually told that we are the largest and the most active, but being Asian, I'm a little bit shy to say it, but I believe that actually might be factually true. And I would be remiss to mention that we're also a member of the AmChams of Asia Pacific. As you might be aware, there are over 28 AmChams in the Asia Pacific region. Some countries have more than one, and we're very pleased to be part of that fraternity. Here's some of the logos of our esteemed companies. You can see that the range of companies is quite incredible, and our community benefits from having these companies being active and engaged. Our community also is not just relevant to our closed community of the Chamber, but also the community at large here in Singapore. Our three strategic pillars, which are very important and help us stay aligned and focused, are on advocacy, business insights, and connections. And let me tell you a little bit more about our strategic pillars. The first one is on advocacy. We work very closely with the U.S. Embassy, represented by Chad here this morning, as well as the Singapore government, represented by Chee Chain. We are very fortunate to have strong relationships where our members as well get to interact with key stakeholders on both sides on a regular basis. And by regular, I mean almost on a weekly basis. We have in-person events, which was more common before COVID-19, but even now happens once in a while. And definitely we have regular correspondence via formal feedback sessions and other ways of communicating with key government stakeholders and policymakers. We have a variety of different ways in which we engage at all levels. Here's an example of our signature series. I would also like to let everyone know that in March 2021, we will be holding what was postponed from this year. In March of next year, we will be holding the AmChams of Asia Pacific Business Summit. Singapore was very fortunate to be selected to host this upcoming business summit, and we do hope that you will be able to join us then. More information will be coming via our website and other social media presence. Moving on to our second strategic pillar on business insights, I would like to mention that this is probably something that since taking over from AmCham, I've been building up. I do believe that my team, as well as our partners, have tremendous insights, just critical, thinking on the current relationships that we have in the region, as well as from a business perspective. What are the trends, both locally, regionally, globally, and mega trends to come? And so as an American Chamber of Commerce, leveraging the knowledge and expertise of all of our member companies, this is an area where we really want to be able to build up. Now, how would we be able to do this? In most cases, what we do is we start with a survey. Now, sometimes the surveys are done in collaboration with other chambers in the region, with other organizations, and other times we might start with an idea, with a principle, for example, on diversity and inclusion. So you can see here that the range of our publications, surveys, insights really cover a lot of ground, and it really represents what our member companies believe are important in order to be able to be successful companies in Singapore, but also responsible companies in terms of contributing meaningful work and ideas to the greater ecosystem here in Singapore. Now, on our third strategic pillar, which is connections, this is my favorite part. And in fact, when I did my interview for this role, I actually thought that this is where I personally could contribute a bit more. Having been a member of the Chamber for over 10 years, the community aspect of what we do is really, really key. And the way we do it is across these sectoral and functional committees that I mentioned earlier. We recently did a slight restructuring of the committees, once again reflecting what our members felt were important, and also reflecting what the greater community in terms of the Singapore government, for example, and the US government would believe are important areas of focus. And so you can see from our sectoral committees, we have aerospace and defense, financial services, healthcare, technology, media and telecommunications, small and medium enterprises, supply chain, transportation and logistics, travel and leisure. These sectoral committees essentially represent the key industry sectors in Singapore, reflecting also partnerships with the US government. And on the right-hand side, you see the functional committees, and you can see that they represent anywhere from diversity and inclusion matters to cybersecurity. How do we actually support our businesses in ensuring that functionally they are able to be at their best and optimize in terms of their operations. And again, from a connections point of view, we do offer certain programs that bring the community together, because the other important role of the chamber is to be able to convene our member companies and think about how we can actually contribute to the wider community. And so there you can see on the left-hand side, AmCham Women. In the middle is something that we're very proud of. It's a program that's been running already for 6 years. It is a training and development program, the next generation business leadership program. And in 2021, I'm very proud to say that we will be upgrading the program, hence Next Gen Upgrade 2021. And you can see here our member companies have come in and said, we will run training sessions for you for your mid-level managers. And this is not only for employees of our member companies, but also for non-members, for other employees, other workers within Singapore who need to uplift their skill set and their experience. And so we're very proud of this business leadership program in that we're giving back to the community. And finally, our SME Accelerate program. As you know, small and medium-sized enterprises drive the economies around the world. So we want to make sure that SMEs also receive some level of support, training, and other types of facilities to help them make business deals. And that's why it's really important for us that this connections piece works. And so I conclude by what has become our mantra and our motto for the year. It has been born out of COVID-19 and some of the, stressful moments that we've all experienced. But we want to be looking forward, and we believe that AmCham member companies represent the best of American business values: free enterprise, fairness, creativity, respect for people from diverse backgrounds, and optimism. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, and that was fantastic. I know that we talk a lot about the business values that AmCham member companies really bring to the region, and I think from a U.S. government standpoint, that's something we're all very proud of as well. I also know one of the issues that we're both passionate about is women's empowerment. Certainly from a U.S. government standpoint, we see that as a priority issue for us, not only here in Singapore, but in every mission in the world. And I wonder if maybe you could talk a little bit more about the AmCham Women's Program and some of the initiatives that you have planned for that space.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Chad, for noticing that. AmCham Women started for us a few years ago. Now, I know some of the leaders of the other chambers are probably dialed in and thinking, we were doing that too. Completely agree with you. This is nothing new. And in fact, I only wish that we had started sooner. Now, the idea of supporting women in business is also something that we all talk about a lot. And frankly, from a woman in business, I would say that often we stop at coaching and we stop at sponsorship. We stop at this type of talking activity. So AmCham Women really has evolved from a talking activity to wanting to really have a direct impact on the community at large, particularly women leaders. Right. So essentially, we started a few years ago as a task force. It was, when you hear task force, it also means a bit of a pilot, an experiment, and it has received so much support from the community that this year it was actually promoted to full committee status, which for an American Chamber of Commerce is a really big deal, because chambers rely on these committees to drive the thought leadership, as I mentioned before. So AmCham Women is now focused on supporting mid-level managers with concrete programs that help to develop their skill sets. Now, we're still in the process of determining what we can do, but one area of focus for us are women-led businesses. Women-led businesses, as many of you know, face certain degrees of challenge. Some of it is around the uneven distribution of home work. So that meaning the burden of having to take care of your families, doing caregiving duties, as well as pay attention to your business. That is a challenge that has been documented. There's plenty of evidence to support that. Other women-owned business challenges are also a slight lack of understanding about how to tap into the right networks. And I was really shocked to learn just recently when I participated in a UN program where they told us the data show that women business owners do not feel comfortable coming to chambers of commerce because chambers are perceived to be male dominated and a bit of I already know you, hey, how's it going? Well, We don't want to be that way. And I think maybe if you ever get to meet me, definitely I am the person who's going to invite you to anything, even if I don't really know you yet. And for women owners, business owners, I want all of you to know that we are here to support you, and we want you to be able to come and receive the support you need, which also includes introductions to potential business partners. So that's one aspect of what we're doing around AmCham Women. We've got amazing engagement from really senior women leaders in Singapore and globally. So I do hope that if anyone is interested in working with us on supporting women leaders here in Singapore, please do let me know.
That's fantastic. I mean, it makes perfect sense, that kind of that old boys club that they talk about, in the business world. But I would note that, as I've arrived in Singapore and gotten to know you and the business community here, I've been so impressed with the amount of women leaders on the AmCham board. I mean, it's fantastic.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we're not yet there though, Chad, because we want to see parity on the board. We've got 7 women leaders, which is the most I believe we've ever had. But in order to get to parity on an 18-member board, we've got to get to 9. So anyone out there who's in Singapore interested in joining our board, here's my little pitch for you.
Okay, noted. We'll work on that with you. So I wanted to maybe pivot to a specific point in your presentation where when you talked about the Insight program and some of the surveys and research that you all do. Could you talk a little bit about how AmCham's work is helping your member companies deal with the current challenges of COVID and then some of their strategic plans going into 2021 and beyond?
Yeah. Well, this is the irony because I am an epidemiologist, and I bet many of you, some of you, wouldn't have known what an epidemiologist does until COVID-19 came. So when I took over the chamber, COVID-19 wasn't even in our mind yet. And ironically, now it is something that we have to deal with every day, whether it's, spoken or unspoken. And so from an insights perspective, that's a really good example of the kind of support we can provide, not just businesses, but also Singapore government or the US government into gaining insights into what our member companies are experiencing. So at the end of January, when the news broke about the start of the outbreak in China and then moving out here to Singapore, or we were preparing for it too, we conducted a survey with our member companies. That was the COVID-19 Business Impact Survey. Now, remember, this is very early days, right? But already we knew this was something where we started to have to assess how people were preparing. What are your plans in terms of your employees, which was critical? What are your plans in terms of your business operations? We now know that supply chain disruption has been one of the major issues our companies are facing. So our survey covered all of that. And if you're interested in seeing way back then and being nostalgic about the early days, you can actually download the report from our website. So you're looking at COVID-19 situation. We got the survey results out. We actually engaged with the Minister for Trade and Industry in Singapore to come and speak about what the government was already planning. So our members could be prepared and understand how they were going to be able to operate effectively in Singapore, keeping in mind that many of our members actually have regional headquarters in Singapore. And so really needed to be able to plan not just for Singapore, but for what was going to happen in the region at large. And so those are the kinds of insights work we do. We also have the ASEAN Business Outlook Survey, and thank you to the ASEAN Chambers, American Chambers of Commerce in ASEAN, who work with us on that. And ironically, that's another example of a disruption that happened. We actually conducted one in September 2019. That's when the survey was released. And traditionally, we would then release the results of the survey early the following year, which would have been this year, 2020. But it made no sense, right? Because September 2019, there was no COVID. And if you're going to talk about an outlook, business outlook for the region in 2020 that didn't take into account COVID, no point in doing that anymore. So unfortunately, we did take a pause. Yeah, it made no sense, right? So unfortunately, we did take a pause this year. But what is actually going to be really meaningful is at the AmChams of Asia Pacific Business Summit next March, we will be releasing not just the 2019 survey results, when we took the survey, but also when we actually release the survey again in November. And if you do receive it as a member of any of the AmChams in the region, please do give us that feedback, because by the time we share the results with you in March, we're going to be able to benchmark what companies were thinking in 2019 versus what they're thinking now towards the end of 2020. I expect some really interesting findings in terms of how COVID-19 has not just disrupted us directly, but also disrupted the way we do business and how we perceive the future. And that's going to be really important for us as we move away from only thinking about COVID-19, but also thinking about the greater economy and our business activities overall.
Thanks a lot for that. It's a lot. I think when we sit back here in the world of government, and I won't speak for you, Chee Chain, but I don't know that we adequately appreciate the challenges that the business community has gone through in terms of not only dealing with the present economic downturn, but thinking about how you react to that going forward. Hsien, one of the things that I've been so impressed by with AmCham is the great partnership that you have with the government of Singapore and all of the ministers and the senior officials that you get to engage with the members. Could you maybe talk a little bit about how AmCham works with the government of Singapore in that unique role that they have in partnering with business?
Thank you very much. Later on, I expect I'll get some kind of report card from Chee Chain about how well we work with his ministry. But our primary ministry that we work with is the Ministry for Trade and Industry, because they look out for business in Singapore. And as part of that ministry, we have the Economic Development Board, EDB, as well as Singapore Tourism Board. So all of these organizations work very closely with us to understand what our businesses need. So we've been very fortunate. In addition, the Ministry of Manpower has also been working with us to understand what American businesses need to succeed, both in Singapore and the region. And the way we work with them is very collaborative. So we don't take direction because we're not in a position to be told what to do. So please do not think that we are in any position where U.S. Embassy tells us what to do, Singapore government tells us what to do, and we just do what they tell us to do. I want to reassure all businesses that our primary audience and stakeholder is you. Any American business or business interested in doing business with American companies or in the US, we represent you. So anytime an issue comes up that makes it difficult for you to do business, whether it has to do with human capital, whether it has to do with operational supply chain issues, please, I would love to be your go-to chamber, because that's how we work with the government. We are able to collect all the feedback. We're able to be your voice. We're able to do it in a way that is diplomatic as well as thoughtful, in the sense that we're not representing any single entity. And that's why when we provide feedback, we have these informal and formal conversations. We have group sessions, these dialogues for our members to directly interact. And I would have to do a little advertising in that even today, we have a signature event, which is our Ballastier series, with Minister for Sustainability and the Environment, Minister Grace Fu. She will be joining our members for a fireside chat. It's amazing to see how the ministers in Singapore are very willing to have these direct conversations with our members. And even in a couple of weeks, the Minister for Manpower, Josephine Teo, will be joining us, and again, taking questions directly from our members. So you can see this two-way conversation is happening all the time.
Fantastic. Well, I would be remiss if I didn't give Chee Chain a chance to weigh in on this topic from the government of Singapore's standpoint as well. Chee Chain, would you mind maybe saying a few words on how the Singaporean government views its relationship with the business community?
I think the Singapore government has always welcomed foreign investors, especially because they bring in value and they contribute to the economy, into our society. They help to upskill our workforce, and along the way, knowledge transfer, technology transfer. So we have always benefited from the generous support from our investors, and with working with entities like AmCham and other chambers of commerce, I think it's always been a very, very comfortable relationship. I think both sides are quite open to discuss serious issues that concerns the business community and for the Singapore government to feedback on concerns about people as well. So it's a very dynamic and very, very open and frank process. And I hope we can continue to be able to continue this kind of conversations. Thanks, Chad.
Thank you so much. Okay, well, Hsien, I don't want to take up too much of your time today, but I would like to ask a few other things. We've got some questions coming in from the attendees, and so one question that we have, and I think that you sort of answered this, but maybe if you could expand a little bit. What is the best way for U.S. companies who are looking to expand their operations in Singapore? How can they engage with AmCham while they're still abroad? I think before they've landed in Singapore, can they work with you in advance?
Yeah, I'm so delighted to receive that question because that is one of the most effective ways for U.S. companies looking to expand in Singapore to basically do it before you even arrive, right? And I think that the team at the U.S. Embassy, they're incredibly helpful. So definitely that would be one organization that you need to be connected with. But the Chamber provides a different set of services, which is we can help you understand what potential customers you might have in Singapore and also connect you with other potential partners with whom you can do business and just make you feel comfortable and confident about setting up your business in Singapore. And as I always tell the team, you may have a question that is even unrelated to business directly, but as we all know, work life is completely intertwined. And for you to feel comfortable to set up your business here means that you personally, and maybe if you're bringing family, you've got to feel comfortable about that. And so if we can't answer these questions for you, we will connect you with people who will be able to answer whatever questions you need. And in terms of membership, I would also be remiss if I didn't mention that we do have a special category of membership for those who are non-resident. It is very reasonably priced. You can find it on our website, and we certainly welcome you to join us as a member before you even make that move to Singapore. And you can always find me on LinkedIn.
Thank you for that. It is great advice, and I would be remiss if I didn't get a plug in for the Department of Commerce's advocacy programs that they have, both for folks that want to export from the United States, but also for folks that want to relocate here. So thank you for bringing that up. I think it's a nice segue for us to maybe transition to the second part of our presentation, which is more on the government to government side. But Hsien, I want to give you any last words or parting thoughts from the AmCham perspective.
Oh, thank you very much. One thing that we have been working quite a bit on this year with the disruption due to the pandemic is really helping our companies share their stories. And so I do hope that you will look out for some coverage as well as our social media channels. If you're curious about what's happening in Singapore, even if you're already in Singapore and you're wondering, what's everybody else doing? We will be profiling our member companies and the great work they do in 3 areas. One is business stability, growth, stability, sustainability, and growth. The second area would be on innovation and R&D, and the third one would be careers. And so I do hope that you will learn more about what it means to do business here in Singapore and what wonderful things our American companies are doing here. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Hsien. Well, at this time, I'm gonna shift to Chee Chain and I from a government perspective, talking about a very unique program that we have here in Singapore. It's called the Singapore United States Third Country Training Program. We want to start out with a short introductory video compiled by, we compiled it together, and then we're going to just have a little conversation about what TCTP is and seek some feedback from our attendees. So bear with me for just 1 minute. I'll try not to screw this up. Let me see here.
We established TCTP in 2012, and since then the United States and Singapore have worked together to organize 47 workshops. More than 1,200 regional government officials have participated in training in key areas like cybersecurity, environmental regulation, intellectual property rights, healthcare, trade policy, urban planning, and disaster management.
Well, the Singapore-US TCTP partnership has become a signature of the Singapore Cooperation Program. We have received very good feedback from our participants, and many of them have expressed interest in applying the knowledge that they have learned back in their home countries. This has really enhanced the information sharing and coordination in this region.
It's such a good program because you bring all different countries in Asia that has similar situation in terms of development. So we face similar problem. And then when we come together like this, we can share experience from each other and then we can learn from each other.
So the unprecedented challenges posed by COVID-19 have disrupted much of our personal and professional lives. But I'm pleased to say that in 2020, TCTP continues uninterrupted.
To overcome international travel restrictions, we have turned to conducting online courses and introduced a new course application system. In consultation with the US, we have curated this year's TCTP courses to focus on priority areas pertinent to this region's recovery, such as digitalization and the digital economy.
Now we are looking at how we continue to manage and hopefully move beyond COVID-19.
Singapore and the US have complementary strengths and expertise that are beneficial to ASEAN's community building goals. We will continue to coordinate and consult the US closely to discover new areas of collaboration.
I thank the organizers for this opportunity for me to come here.
Programs like TCTP provide a critical link for ASEAN countries to come together in a substantive way to exchange ideas and best practices on critical public policy issues.
Wow. Chee Chain, you look great on that video.
Well, thanks, Chad. It took a lot of takes, and I'm very grateful for your colleague in the US Embassy for bearing with me as I've messed up the lines.
No, it was fantastic, and thank you again to you and all your colleagues at the MFA for agreeing to do that and agreeing to be with us here today. I think it really sends a strong statement about the strength of our partnership between our two countries and how we're working for the betterment of all of ASEAN and the Indo-Pacific.
Well, I think it's a pleasure for us to be here as well. I think first and foremost, the Singapore and US have very strong and robust relationship, and we've continued to break new milestones. And the TCTP, which was started in February of 2012, is one such milestones that we have crossed together. And well, basically, maybe if I can just elaborate a bit more about the TCTP.
Please, yeah.
Yeah, it's a valuable platform for the US and Singapore to work together to provide capacity building and raise standards in areas useful to the region's development and integration. So it has helped Singapore and the US as we have both provided significant capacity building assistance to ASEAN countries and to create a multiplier effect by working together to provide better technical assistance and support ASEAN in its integration journey. Even as we've been affected badly by COVID-19, we've continued to work together by conducting workshops virtually. I'm also pleased to report that well, since we've started this collaboration, we have actually gone close to 50 programs and trained about 1,300 officials from ASEAN and Timor-Leste to help them better meet the needs of our regions and to address common challenges in a collaborative manner. So in past years, the course topics have ranged from more contemporary issues such as trade facilitation, public health, infrastructure development, and increasingly to more forward-looking topics like cybersecurity, e-payments, smart cities, and IP laws. And many of the participants I've mentioned in the video, they're keen to apply what they learned, and more importantly, they found the networking experience invaluable. And through mutual learning, I think all ASEAN member states are able to flatten the learning curve and shorten the policy formulation process. That that's very critical and facilitates foreign investments in our region.
Well, thank you for that, Chee Chain. It's certainly something that I know is highly valued. From the U.S. government's perspective, that vital work that we're doing to help the public policy space, through some of these more developing countries that haven't been as fortunate over these last few years. So, thank you again for highlighting that for us. If I could turn now to COVID. I mean, we can't do one of these and not talk about COVID, right? And Hsien, I'm going to come back to you, both from your AmCham hat, but also from your Doctor of Epidemiology hat, on this one as well. So, but the first question would go to you, to Chee Chain, is how was TCTP impacted by COVID-19, and maybe could you talk us through some of the challenges and opportunities that have been presented by not being able to bring everybody into Singapore to do the workshops in person as we traditionally would?
Well, Chad, I think this year with this pandemic has been unprecedented and unparalleled in terms of the disruption it has caused to TCTP. I think on the more upstream concerns was whether governments have the bandwidth to nominate participants to attend causes. And then the further downstream issues would be how to get them to Singapore. And if we can't get them to Singapore, what would be the alternative? So there was this very frank consultation process we had with the State Department to iron out these issues. And coming from a high threshold of comfort, I think we were able to address these issues frankly and quickly. So we narrowed down to 6 topics that we want to run for this year, and that focuses on basically how we can restructure the region and promote digitalization. And I think it's particularly important at this point in time where human-to-human interactions have to be cut back. And life must go on. International trade must continue. We must continue to ensure that the global supply chain remains intact. So these topics, such as the TFA, e-payments, smart cities, we've kind of agreed with the State Department that these are our priority for this year, and basically we have gone ahead to promote these causes. I'm very happy to note that despite such challenging times, many of our causes are oversubscribed. I think a lot of governments are taking this opportunity, even though they have to divert their resources to manage the public health crisis and also to tackle unemployment because of COVID. But I think many governments are aware that it's important to get government officials to quickly build up the capacity and for recovery to take place. So we're very heartened to see such positive responses from our partners, even in terms of private sector involvement. I think our business partners have always been this mainstay of the TCTP program, and they've been very supportive despite such challenging moments for all of us.
Well, thank you for that. It's a great answer, and certainly something that's topical, and I think will continue to be with us. I know in my conversations with the government of Singapore that they're planning to deal with COVID for the long term, and hoping that's not the case, but certainly that you all are planning for having to address this pandemic for some time to come, and I think that's the right approach. Hsien, can we turn to you in this wonderful, unique role that you have of being this powerful and experienced business person, but also somebody that knows infectious disease really well as well. Could you talk about how, from your perspective, how you've seen both Singapore and the region react to the pandemic this year, and maybe what are some of the good things and what are some of the things that maybe we could improve upon as a group going forward?
Yeah. Oh, thank you very much. I have to admit, I'm more of a cardiovascular person, so we'll have a separate conversation about the scourge of diabetes, hypertension, and other cardiovascular diseases and the impact it has on our region. But for today, you're right, the topical disease is COVID-19. And frankly, it's not COVID-19 alone, it's also other infectious diseases. In Singapore, we've also experienced a very high level of dengue infections as well. In fact, the number of deaths from dengue is now equivalent to the number of deaths that we've had this year from COVID-19. So let's not forget as well that there are other healthcare matters that we need to be paying attention to. But specific to the COVID-19 response, I think most of us are aware that Singapore has had its ups and downs, but overall, the response to Singapore's pandemic situation really was very thoughtful, and many thanks to our Ministry of Health professionals who have been sustaining us throughout all of this. And, you know, Chee Chan and I were saying that they have not really had much chance to sleep. So we do hope that sometime soon they'll be able to get a break. It's been very hard for them, but yet, you know, it's because of them that we are where we are today. The response, first of all, on the communications front has been incredible. The government has been extremely transparent about what they do know and what they don't know and explaining their actions. I think that's incredibly important to gain public trust. And very, very early on, I believe the Singapore population just really trusted the government and what they wanted to do. And yes, of course, you can argue that some things could have been done better. And why did you change your mind about wearing masks? But as all of us know, science evolves, right? Science teaches us. We learn from experience. And so we can't say we know everything from day one. We usually don't know hardly anything from day one, but it's because of science and the way our healthcare colleagues approach things that we began to improve in our response to managing, caring, preventing COVID-19. So I think the Singapore government being very measured in their approach has been very helpful. That's on the public health front, right? The hospitals were prepared. Singapore had very good healthcare infrastructure, very good healthcare insurance coverage. All of those things was pre-COVID. So again, you know, thinking about prevention and preparedness, you can't just say immediately and be reactive and be successful. No, it means that, you know, when we approach healthcare, it is something that we've got to do preventively as well as reactively. And that's probably true from a business perspective as well, right? From an impact of COVID-19 and how businesses were managing their employees' health, those businesses that had wellness folks in place, had good health insurance coverage for their employees, businesses then were able to respond really well. And also, we're very fortunate in Singapore that the government had released 4 budgets, a record number of budgets in 2020 that provided tremendous business support, right, in terms of subsidies. And the chamber also benefited from that. Right? Our budget benefited because the government helped us. That was also really important. But back to the science of things, what else did Singapore do? Well, contact tracing, incredibly important. You can also argue that Singapore has a relatively small population, and so therefore it's a little bit easier to do contact tracing. Yes, that is true, but contact tracing also comes with COVID-19 testing. Now, as of now, COVID-19 testing isn't widely available in the sense that you can walk into any clinic and say, hi, I'd like a COVID-19 test. It's not that straightforward. So I wouldn't say that it is generally on demand. But COVID-19 testing has been strategically deployed so that it is used for folks who are coming into the country, folks who are symptomatic, folks who are asymptomatic because they've been in contact with someone who has been diagnosed. It's also available to those who are traveling to countries that have that requirement. It is available when and as you need it, but it isn't something that you just get, you know, go off the street and say, hey, I'd like to have one. So we're not quite there with testing simply because of availability.
Well, I tell you, as someone who's recently arrived to Singapore, I can speak to the just the high level of professionalism and thought that goes into that. I remember the first time that I left my apartment in 10 days when I was in my quarantine. I was so excited to get my COVID-19 test. I don't think anybody's ever been so excited to have that swab stuck in their nose, but we were. It was a great day, and it went really well. So. Look, we're running short on time, but there is one other topic that I wanted to ask Chee Chan about as we close, because I know that he's passionate about this as well, and that's this idea that we were talking about, Chee Chan, about this nexus between government and industry working together to form appropriate policies that enable economic growth and development. And I know that's a central theme for TCTP. So Chee Chain, could you maybe share some of your thoughts on that important topic?
Sure, Chad. I think it's very important because I feel that the U.S. private sector has played an important role in raising standards in the region and in supporting ASEAN in its path towards greater integration. We really appreciate the fact that the U.S. private sector takes time and effort to join us and support our TCTP training courses in Singapore previously. And they've also been very active volunteering their time as we transit to the online courses. Well, behind all this, we are acutely aware that policy making does not exist in a vacuum. Our courses, hence, have been carefully curated to meet the evolving needs and business realities of the region. The US private sector has always been an abiding and dynamic presence in this region and has played an instrumental role in the region's development over the past few decades. So many of our participants have benefited from their private sector interaction during the TCTPs and being there to hear the private sector's perspective, as many of them come from policy and regulatory background. So for the ongoing IP courses, IP and cybersecurity courses that we're running right now, we have invited speakers from the Walt Disney Company, Cisco, Microsoft, and Lazada to speak to our participants. And we hope to continue inviting the private sector for upcoming courses on infrastructure financing, smart cities, e-payments, and trade facilitation. I believe last year, AmCham would have been involved in our smart city course. So we definitely look forward to having the participation of the private sector through AmCham and through the network of US private sector presence in this region. So I'll probably just round up by saying that ASEAN continues to be an exciting region because we're still reaping the benefits of a growing middle class and a growing youth demographic. So there are many opportunities for the US companies to form meaningful and enduring relationships in Southeast Asia. More importantly, this is COVID-19 has devastated our economies and governments are currently diverting resources to manage the public health crisis. And hence, I believe US investments in the region in this very challenging moments will be timely and appreciated by the 10 ASEAN countries. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that. That just excellent points all the way around. It really does remind me that in the short time that I've been in Singapore, several times I've heard from representatives from private businesses, hey, how can we get involved in TCTP? We participated a few years ago and we've got some ideas and some thoughts and we want to help lend a hand in that effort. So we're in a really good spot, and as a consequence, I think that the other countries of ASEAN are in a really good spot, that there is that drive and desire there to work with us from a government perspective. So that's something I'll look forward to through when we get into 2021, and hopefully we can get together in person again as well. So we're running short on time. We're almost right there. I think I'm going to pat myself on the back for keeping a good clock here. But I wanted to offer an opportunity for any final comments before we have to sign off. So Hsien, any final words for our attendees?
Well, I hope everyone will take good care of yourselves. And I do hope that sometime in the next few months or not too long that you'll be able to make a visit to Singapore. And if you do, please come by the American Chamber of Commerce. We'd love to welcome you. Thank you.
Thanks. Chee Chain.
Well, thanks very much, Hsien and Chad. I'm also equally looking forward to the situation improving and to welcome all of you in Singapore. More importantly, I would like to make a final pitch for our US companies to actively volunteer and sign up to join our programs. And I think your views are valuable, and you have a lot of interactions, you have experience globally, so you could help share best practices beyond the region, and we can all benefit from that kind of mutual learning and sharing. Thank you.
Well, I couldn't have said it better myself. You know, what you guys said, it's exactly right. I mean, we're very fortunate, and we're appreciative of everybody's time and attention today. And I want to thank both you, Hsien, and you, Chee Chain, for taking the time out of your day to sit with me and have a very interesting and useful discussion. So, without further ado, I'll sign off and thanks, and have a good rest of the IPBF.
Thank you, Chad. Thank you, Chee Chain.
Thanks.
See you guys later.